Hey everyone, welcome to the Manitoba YBN interview series. My name is Cody and I sit on the committee, usually working in the background doing the editing, but today I get the pleasure of interviewing our next guest. He's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at BSI Insurance, but most would recognize him as host of the insurance podcast, Pete Tessier. Thanks for letting us flip the roles on you today and doing this interview.
Oh, Cody, you're welcome. Sorry for the inconvenience of my bad timing. And, you're sounding too professional. I think I got some competition on the podcast front.
Oh, well, if you ever need me to take over, no, I'm just kidding. You could keep that one. Okay, well, I'm just going to jump into it, but we're going to start leaning away from insurance for a moment. Tell us a bit about yourself. How did you grow up?
How did I grow up? Well, I'm not a native Manitoban. I'm originally from Vancouver, and I grew up out on the West Coast. And I'm a true West Coaster in some regards. A little bit of everything in terms of being from Vancouver and lackadaisical. I love rain and green forest. So I like to say to people, I moved to Winnipeg because I wanted to experience winter.
How do you feel about that now?
Well, the first time it hits every year, right? It's like a shock to the core. And then you get into it. I mean, I was out ice fishing on Saturday up at, I won't say where because it's a good spot, but, out in the sunshine and everything and, no gloves on, even it was so warm. And then next thing you know, 2 days later, it's minus 31. I mean, welcome to Manitoba.
Yeah, I know. It was beautiful the past few days. I was outside going on some walks and enjoying it myself. And not very many places to go right now with what's going on, but you got to get out while you can while it's a little bit warmer.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I know specifically you say a lot, and it holds true for the majority of people in our industry. And no one grows up wanting to get into insurance. So Tell me, how'd you get that start?
So, of course, like a lot of brokers, traditional brokers, wherever you are, it's a family business. You get pulled in by a family member. And, the only thing I knew about insurance before I came into it was I bought it for my car and I had some tenants insurance and such like that. And my wife and I, we had an opportunity just to get involved in the family business out here in Winnipeg. And so we said, well, why not? And we moved, from Vancouver to Winnipeg. I went the other way, right? Everyone seems to go one way. I went the other way and never looked back. That's sort of how it happened. And, it just sort of one year after another, it kind of all rolls together. And next thing you know, you're been in the industry almost 20 years.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I never thought of getting into the industry either. And then just one day, pop, you're there and you don't even, you never look back.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what is it about the industry that makes you want to stay?
Oh, it's the people, 100%. I've been saying this since 2006, maybe even earlier. People in insurance are fantastic. And I always say this, I say it on the podcast, I say it at work. You can't be in insurance if you don't care about people. Like you just won't find success. You have to have an aspect of care and compassion for others because that's what we do. We provide a product in insurance to help people at their most vulnerable point, excuse me, when potentially everything in their life has literally disappeared or their business is done or something's happened to them. And you've got to care about that moment and care about people. And that's sort of what keeps me in it because the people who are in this are fantastic. It's just awesome, awesome people. And it's an industry no one talks about. And the reason no one talks about it is because if you hadn't really gotten in with insurance people, you'd have no idea how awesome it is. That's the best part about it. And believe me, given the market conditions right now, you need something to keep you going because it's tough slogging out there.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. It's definitely the people, whether it's the clients, the people you work with, the people you're talking on the phone every day. I love being in insurance because you can really show, you can really see how it helps the people out there, just being there for them.
Yeah.
Especially due to the market conditions right now.
Yeah, exactly. This is the time if you haven't built relationships previously to this year or in the last year, you're wishing you sure as heck had, because those relationships are what's going to get you through this hard market and through the ramifications of COVID and all the things that in between. It's everything.
Yeah, a lot of people out there right now, they were previously thinking that the only way to really be there for a client is when they have a claim, but now they're learning there's so many different ways
Yeah.
to actually be there for them.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's it, right? Like you've got to be there partway through the year. You got to be there to talk them off the ledge. You've got to be there to listen to them when they have successes. And, one of the things everyone talks about in insurance is touch points. How do you make touch points with your clients happen? And the last thing, if the only thing you ever do is talk to your client is to call them up and ask for money once a year, you're missing the big point. I mean, a former regional branch manager for one of the big companies here said to me years ago, he goes, the biggest fault we have as insurance people, in particular for brokers, is we don't do enough to brand ourselves as true professionals. Or as he said to me, you don't do enough to brand yourself as true professionals. And you should be thinking, you should be almost impossible to divorce. Like who, your doctor, your lawyer, your accountant, your dentist, you rarely change them unless something's gone horribly wrong. And I always say, and I say it to my staff, I said, the person you want to be like is a hairdresser. Forget those other professionals. If you have and I'm going to get, someone's going to accuse me of being totally sexist here, but this is 100% true. Wife, girlfriend, significant other, whatever it is, even a guy with your barber or your hairstylist, try going and leaving them. You can't. It's the most cringe-worthy moment of thinking, I've got to go find a new hairstylist because I just need to change because something's gone wrong. It's so hard to do. You don't ditch them because what do you do when you sit with your hairstylist? They're cutting your hair and they're doing something for you. You have no skill of being able to do, but you talk and they know everything about you. They know what's going on with your kids, your parents, your friends. They know if you had success at work. You know everything about them, and it's a friendship, and you see them every 6 weeks. Or if you're like my wife, every 3. And what happens is, why aren't we doing the same thing at checking in with our customers that way? That's where the people part comes in, because then they'll never leave you.
Yeah,
never.
For sure. Like for myself, if I were to change, I changed my hairdresser once, like 3 years ago, and then going into the new hairdresser, you're like, oh, I got to introduce myself. I got to start this all over again.
Yeah, it's hard. And then you got to find one. Well, who did your friend go to someone? Who is it? It's terrible. And people just take them for granted because there's one on every corner. But there's a reason for that. We all have hair. We all need haircuts.
And honestly, as brokers too, we should have that relationship with people. We should be their best friend because we're there. Yeah, we're there for them when they need us most.
Exactly. But the other point is if you're not going to have that relationship, well, then don't complain when someone comes in, digitizes the whole thing, and the customers run off because you were never there, right? Why did Lemonade go after tenants? Because no one wants to touch tenants.
Yeah,
it's the gateway. It's the gateway drug of insurance. When you're getting into property insurance, aside from auto, because we're a public auto province here, it's the gateway drug. You sell them a tenant's policy, then they move up. Maybe they buy a condo, then they get a house. Maybe they get a boat. Maybe they start a business. You get that, and it's just this accretion of products that you can sell them as they grow with you. But if you can automate that, you may never see them again. So that's why they're going after the low-hanging fruit. It's easy because we've just neglected them.
Exactly. Yes. And then you can even, as you mentioned, just keep going up and up with them because if you basically see their life evolve as they go on. And if you're in life insurance too, you see them have children, you see them like so many different things.
Exactly. Then they start having children, right? Then they need mortgage insurance. Then they need life insurance and all the different things, accident and sickness and stuff. It's an avenue of things. But if we don't touch them, we don't become their friends, become integrated with them, they'll run away from us the second they get a chance because someone's doing it better.
Exactly.
We're way off topic now, aren't we?
I'm good with this. Go off on a tangent.
Exactly.
We'll veer back eventually, but yeah. Okay, let's just go right back into it. Pete, you're a busy guy, as well as like you were running a brokerage.
Yeah.
You were on the National BIP subcommittee from 2010 to 2012.
Yep.
Then you served as IBAM board, and you were president from 2011 to 2012. Following that, you moved onto IBAC board
Yep.
from 2012 to 2013. In 2015, you were appointed by the government of Manitoba to the General Insurance Council of Manitoba.
Yep.
And through all that, you run an insurance podcast.
Right. I started an insurance podcast. Actually, after I sold the brokerage, I started the insurance podcast. And even in there, and from 2005 to 2012, I had another business that sold industrial supply products as well.
Wow.
Yeah, very busy. And I don't even know if it's in there. You probably know. I know where you're reading that from. I also wrote a hockey blog, and I had a press pass, and I was going to Jets games. Yeah, it's busier the better. I'm a Gemini. I juggle. Some people say I juggle. I say I just throw balls in the air and run away from them.
So how do you prioritize all that?
Then it was a little more difficult, but you know what? The interesting thing about it was my kids were at a younger age. So the demands on time were a little different. People always think, oh, it's so hard when your kids are younger. Well, they're not going out at night. They're not like teenagers running off and like pushing boundaries and everything. So it was a little easier to do that because I knew my evenings were free for hockey stuff. And, it was a little more pain on my wife. But when it comes to prioritizing things, it's challenging because if you're someone like me who has a lot of diversity and interests, and you're like, oh, squirrel, look, and you run away, look over there, and you run off. You got to make sure you remember to come back. And sometimes things don't get finished on the timeline you expect, but if you finish them and you meet the expectations met, you can usually balance things out. So prioritizing is right now, like with my current day-to-day job, it's a lot of putting out fires. And so as long as you're making sure the fires don't get any bigger, you keep everything flowing in the right way, you'll find time to get around to the projects. And I think we're all struggling with that right now. Just our work environments are a little different. So you prioritize things a little differently. And I don't know anyone right now who truly is focusing on the sort of the tactical and strategic priorities of their insurance business model, whatever it is, compared to how they'd like to be doing it. It's just a difficult time to do things in the same way, particularly when we're all working remotely in some cases.
Yeah, for sure. It's with so much stuff that's going on right now in the world, it's hard to keep focus on just one thing when there's so many other things that you need to juggle to be able to just get through the day to day.
Yeah, it is. It's really challenging, and that's what happens, right? You just get hit throwing curveballs all the time, and there it goes.
For sure. What is it that motivates you just to keep going?
Fun. I'm just a curious person in the sense of where I'm at. It's just you keep trying, keep pushing forward to kind of learn things, try something new, and keep it up. I mean, maybe I have a short attention span. I don't know. I just like trying new things. Sense of adventure. You can always do something that, and if it doesn't work, go back and do something later. As my friend Jeff Roy out in Ontario says, work should be an adventure, and he compares a brokerage to an amusement park. Every day, go out and keep building your own amusement park. Change your ride, adjust it, make it more fun. And if you think of your life like that, I think it's a great metaphor for life. If you can just keep an interest in what you do and make it fun, and sometimes not everything's fun, and there's a lot of work that goes into that, you can keep pushing forward and doing anything as long as you make sure you're doing something fun. And sometimes you got to make some pretty dramatic shifts when things aren't fun, and that's just part of life.
I really like that. Like a lot of people just keep going at it day to day, and it's a grind for them, and they don't do things to try to make it fun, and it's rough, and they just end up eventually giving up on what they're doing. But when you adjust what you're doing to try to make it an adventure, as you say, it really makes life work like worth doing, and really pushes you to go that extra mile.
Yeah, that's it. When you're doing something you love, like everyone says that, right? It's the old cliche thing. If you do what you love, it'll never feel like work. Well, that's not true. I'm in love with someone, I've been with them for 25 years, and there's some days in my relationship that's it sure as heck is work. Same for my wife. But the point being is that it gets you over those hard parts a lot easier. And when they do come, you've got a little bit of passion and belief that once you're through it, you feel you'll be back to loving what you do. Like, I've said this to a number of people. There's not a lot to love about the insurance marketplace right now. It's not fun. Um, and and I don't think anyone's having a lot of fun right now, unless you're Charles Brindamore and you just keep buying up companies. But if if you can find the little things, solve some little problems, and learn a little bit, you'll be better off for it, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And, we'll all be a little smarter and a little wiser when we get through this market cycle, and we'll start having fun again. And, or the fun will become more frequent. I just think the fun's spaced out a little bit too far.
There's a lot of things that you're saying that I want to again go out into different tangents for, but we don't have that kind of time for this. But yeah, like I agree with you completely. Like, it's work is work, but you gotta do what you gotta do to really make it interesting.
Yeah.
Like, Pete, you've had a lot of different roles within our industry over the years. I know a few people out there really want to know, where did the idea to create the insurance industry podcast come from?
Okay.
Because personally,
no, go, keep going. Sorry.
I was going to say, I was looking for an insurance podcast when I got into the industry, because I'm a podcast kind of person.
Yeah.
And then eventually I found yours.
So I was sitting around in, when was it? Probably the fall of 2017. I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and I was doing a little bit of consulting work. I was sort of semi-retired, so to speak. And I was chatting with a buddy of mine who's an ex-radio guy, and he's managed radio stations here in Winnipeg and across the country in different areas, Montreal, Edmonton. And Matt was in a part of some corporate downsizing. So he was sort of trying to reinvent himself, but he's a broadcaster. So he went all in on the podcasting revolution. And he said to me one day, he goes, "Why don't you start a podcast about insurance?" I was like, "Oh, Matt." He said, "We can't even get clients to listen to us talk about insurance for 5 minutes. Who's going to want to listen to 30 or 40 minutes of some guy talking about insurance?" He's like, "Who says anyone who goes, why would the public want to listen to insurance? What about your industry?" I was like, "Hey, I never thought about that." Well, the reason he said that is because he has a podcast called the Sound Off Podcast, and it's the podcast for broadcast. And his market is broadcast professionals. So I just applied the same theory. So Matt, good friend of mine, I just took his idea and basically his kick in the butt and did it for the industry. Said, "Okay, let's start the insurance podcast." So I remember we were driving back from Kelowna because we went out skiing for spring break, and I'd done something, and my wife and I were chatting about it, and we said, this is 2018, and we said, "Okay, I'm going to launch, and it's going to be called the Insurance Podcast." And I started recording some people, bought some podcast gear. It's pretty simple, and taught myself how to edit. And I do have a background a bit in video editing and some stuff like that. But even before there was digital, like before iMovie existed and everything like that, where it was linear, and I can remember the first semi-consumer grade non-linear systems. It was a game changer. And so I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and I knew how to use Photoshop and do some things, but I hadn't been doing it for years. And so you just kind of piece it together and learn. And so we know we started talking about relationships. This is where relationships became 100% critical, Cody. I went back through my virtual Rolodex, your Rolodex, date yourself, buddy, through my contacts on my iPhone. And I said, "Okay, who are my industry friends?" And I started calling people up saying, "This is what I'm doing, and you want to come on and let's talk about this." And that got me through. And then, I worked my network, and I had people ask me, say, "Hey, if you know of anyone you think might be interested in this, give them a shout." And it just sort of snowballed from there. But if I didn't have those relationships, if I didn't have those friendships, those professional colleagues, this could never have happened. No way would it have gotten to where it is now. And that speaks to the power of relationships. And anyone who says insurance isn't a relationship game is wrong. And I talk on the podcast. There's a lot of people talk about tech, insure tech, data management, all the different things about what to do. But if you're not using it to forge your relationships, you're probably only scratching the surface of what you could do. And that's what I realized really quick, was those relationships are what got me through and able to get me to where it is now.
Anybody that says insurance is not a relationship organization is in a wrong organization. That's for sure.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Well, from listening to your podcast, I know how passionate you are about technology and how it's evolving within our industry.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest changes you're seeing right now?
Well, the biggest change is that there's investment from third parties who are not traditional companies in the sense of media companies, data companies, or software companies, to start filling in the holes that a lot of tech vendors in the insurance industry have had time to fill in. Whether it's BMS additions, whether it's online consumer facing technology, whether it's marketing technology, there are far more players that are independents, not associated with Applied or CSS or Keel or Vertafore or any of the big players, who do the broker management systems, which are the lifeblood to a brokerage. It's these other guys who are making the biggest dent in changing how we look at what we do with our customers. There's a world of interesting things going on out there. Not every one of them is the right answer for every brokerage, but there's an answer out there for you. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research on the emerging insurtech that's coming out in our industry, and there's a lot to choose from and a lot that's coming out, whether it's from AI or BMS systems or anything. It's where do you even start?
Well, here's the first thing about insurtech is what you see right now out there won't be here in 5 years. It will be gone. There is a huge bubble. I was at InsurTech Connect in 2019. I'm looking forward to going back in 2021 because unfortunately we couldn't do 2020. And the first thing I walked around at that convention was going, this isn't sustainable. This is all these great ideas, but how many AI platforms do we need? And so here's the one thing you wouldn't know this, and maybe I don't have it in my bio or whatever, but I'm a .com survivor. I worked in the .com thing. I jumped from .com to .com as everything was imploding back in the late 90s and early 2000s. I remember it very well. I remember the bubble. I remember the craziness. So if you look at a lot of things, so let's talk about AI. Cody, you brought that up. Well, how many AI companies are out there doing things? Chatbot AI. Like, okay, how many do we need? Eventually, they're going to have to consolidate. Some aren't going to have a revenue model because they haven't developed it fast enough. They haven't scaled fast enough. So a lot of the stuff with startups is scaling as fast as you can, finding the right partnerships, and then investing back in the company to move forward, to get the scale that you need to attract new customers and attract new investment. That's the challenge. And you can pick how many digital marketing companies do we need that specialize in insurance? Do we? I mean, do we need that many? Should there be that many? I mean, all the different things. Like, so I'll give you an example. One of my favorite podcast guests was AJ Altman, who's the co-founder and CEO of Hover. I met him down in Vegas, and we did a quick session there, and we came back and did another podcast last year, probably about a year ago. And Hover does a 3D rendering of buildings, and it can give you measurements. It can be accurate on pitches of roof to square footage, room size. You put in the calculations of bathrooms and other features, and they can get bang on with all sorts of details based on their spatial recognition software. Well, there's about 5 other companies down there. So what else was down there? There's a company that was a drone network. So I'm going and seeing, and the drone network company had the biggest, baddest booth I've ever seen at any trade show I've ever been to. This was insane. And I walked over and we're chatting with the guys, and I'm like, there's a guy down the way there who's got he's got a corner office compared to your boardroom, and he's going to put you all out of business. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, didn't you go see them? Haven't you gone down there? No. We got drone networks. We have a network. So when people need claims, we've got independent drone operators across the world who will come do this. I said, how do drones fly in wind? Well, we got some bigger ones. But I said, what if it's windy for 3 days? Can you get your drones out? What out in the Midwest and the prairies and the flatlands? Can you do that? Well, we'd have to come back. I said, well, what if the guy has to drive out to a remote location and do your inspections and stuff? I said, these guys already have it done. I said, and it's all done with a phone. It's stuff like that where you learn these things, or you see these things in action in real time of who's thinking about what. And that's where it becomes inspiring and interesting. So, just to tie it into something else, I think I even lost my train of thought here, is that's what motivates you, is when you see stuff like this, where you can connect the dots together of how things fit. And I'm not always very good at connecting the dots. A lot of times you get it wrong, but it's certainly interesting to see that stuff and make sense of it all when it comes to technology, and see who's really being innovative versus who's sort of pretending to innovate. Like, did you read Wired magazine?
I do, yes.
Tired and Wired, the whole thing. I tried doing that in a podcast episode, and it was never sustainable because I couldn't get a guest to consistently come up with 5 or 6 things. But Wired, in my view, with insurance and technology, is finding the holes that we had in our processes and building something that efficiently addresses them. The tired part is people thinking, I can just bring people together in a licensing deal and apply that, and then I've got scale. It doesn't work. It's not the same thing. Everything's moving too fast. By the time those drone guys got everything lined up together and done and were of scale, there's another technology that already beaten them out the door.
Anything to do with technology, like technology evolves so fast, whether it's in this industry or another, you got to be on top of things to be able to do it. But it is. And you got to be aware of it. But, the speed of things shouldn't freak people out. No.
Because one of the things that I think that gets really misinterpreted with insurance and technology is, oh my God, I've got to have an online customer portal that does 60 different things, and that's the only way I'm going to survive against technology. No, it isn't. What people need to do is figure out, what do your customers want? What do your customers want to experience? And what I hate, and to all my insurance company friends out there, is when they tell me what my customers want to experience. Because the last time I checked, the only time you ever talk to my customers is when they have a claim. So what do you know what they want? What do you know what they want from their broker? You may do some surveys, but are you touching all of them? You're only touching the ones that you deal with. You're not touching all of them, right? And so what's super interesting is if you're a broker and you're talking to your 5 or 6 companies that you're key partners with, and you ask them, what do your customer survey things say? And you get them to share the information. That's when you cross-reference it and you say, well, actually, yeah, they are sort of saying the same thing. Then you've got a little bit of a reason to move. But if they're all not saying the same thing, then why would you trust one company over the other? You need to trust your own companies and what you're experiencing. And the best person to gauge your customers' needs are the people who are talking to them. So let's take it all the way back to your relationships. And if you're not talking to your people every 6 weeks or 3 weeks, if you're like my wife with the hairdresser, you're probably not aware of what they want. And that's the other part, right? If you tie it all back around, and that's how we can make decisions about what's the best technology to adapt for our brokerages. You just have to dip your toe in the water, try something, test it, measure the results, pass or fail, scale up, pull back, wash, rinse, repeat over and over again, and keep building on things. And if you've got a good technology partner with your BMS, you should be able to do it and integrate as more and more things kind of homogenize in to a more connected, real-time data world. And if your BMS partner isn't invested in that, then you're probably going to have a harder time in 5 years. Like that's what, whenever you buy a piece of software, you buy a service, and you think it's going to be a core aspect to your company, you should be asking that company, well, what's your plan for 5 years from now? What do you want to do? And if they can't tell you, why would you want to partner with them? Right? Like if they can't give you a reason for you to keep being their customer in 5 years from now, because they don't have a plan, that should, thanks very much, head out the other way.
For sure, definitely. And my next question for you, you kind of already answered it, but like no matter what, with AI or with workflow systems going in, you're always going to need a person behind that. We're always going to need brokers to have that personal touch. What advantages do you see technology bringing to brokers, not only who've been in the industry for years, but the ones that are just starting?
Well, if I was to start a brokerage fresh and someone said, Pete, go buy this brokerage and let's rebuild it, I would want a generation of people who were energetic about technology, followed by a leadership that knew how to build, and combined with a leadership that knew the value of relations. And what I would want to do is find technology that supported my ability to forge stronger relations with my customers. That's the forefront of where this all ends. If your technology solutions are not enabling you to understand how to have really good relationships with your customers, then you're probably choosing the wrong technology. Here's the other thing about technology I think we have to be aware of when you're talking to someone. I get email solicitations via LinkedIn or whatever all the time. And I have people telling me what my problems are. And it's incredible. I didn't know they knew so much what my problems were in my marketplace and how to do things. It's like the old famous line on Dr. Phil, where the guy says, well, Phil, I didn't know I had this problem until you told me. And it's like, how do you know what my problem is? Oh, because you're just looking for a customer. You're not interested in solving my problem. You're interested in me buying your solution to a problem that I may not have, but you're just convincing me I have a problem. That's what people got to be wary of. And here's the other thing that we don't do really well in insurance. We sell risk mitigation and transference products, right? But we're the lousiest risk managers when it comes to our own business. We're terrible at it. We don't think with a risk eye. We think fear. Oh my God, big direct online companies coming into the marketplace. Venture backed by millions of dollars in two different insurance companies. They're going to take up 30% of my book in the next 3 years. So what do? We go do the exact same thing. We don't gauge if that's really what's happening. We don't look at our customers and say, what do you want to experience with this? Go back to the low-hanging fruit and lemonade. They just went for the low-hanging fruit and they'll scale up with it. That's because we let them take it. But if you're trying to find a solution with technology, you'll find the one that addresses the needs of your marketplace. Don't worry about the marketplace in Toronto. Don't worry about the marketplace in LA. Don't worry about Vancouver. Know your own marketplace. If you want to sell tenants insurance in Vancouver, well, that's a high, because that's what you think you should do because you're able to do it because of technology. You're going to have to learn a whole lot more about what's going on out there to do it and the cost of things. And the other thing about technology, one of my favorite guests, she's an awesome person. I highly recommend everyone follow Allison Shane. And Allison is spelled Allyson Shane. She's a company called Starling Social, another company that's an event marketing company called Hey Alpha. Allison said one of my favorite quotes ever: if you build it, they will come does not work in marketing. And, the point with that she makes is you can build anything, But if you don't market it, no one's going to use it. So here's the other side about technology. If you don't know how you're going to market it or have any money left over to market it or to guide your customers in because they want it, you built an awesome technology thing, but you haven't left you any room to do the hardest part, which is get people to understand why they should use it. What's your compelling ask? What's the compelling value proposition of the technology? You're getting full squirrel, Pete. I'm jumping all over the place. It's like, but there you go. So you're talking about technology and broker. Anyone who wants to come in on the ground floor, young, energy, boom, let's go. What's the compelling reason that our customers should embrace this technology? Not because it solves a problem they don't know they have, but because it's right in front of them as a problem they do have, and it has a compelling value proposition.
That's great, Pete. Like, I almost wanted to stop you right there and then go on straight to my next question.
You can edit it all out too. You can condense me down.
Just throw it all down. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, like insurance is a continuing education industry.
Yes.
And as you said, if you were to build another brokerage from scratch, you would put an emphasis on technology as well.
Yeah.
But like, there's always something new to learn. Do you think there should be more education revolving around technology and insurance and how it could be used to provide a better customer experience?
I mean, continuing education is two parts. Like, we have a regulatory framework, and I was the former recent past chair. I stepped down from the Insurance Council of Manitoba, so I have the benefit of looking at it from a regulatory standpoint. Whether the regulations are right or not is a whole other conversation. But what they say right now is that we need 8 technical hours a year of insurance continuing education. Okay, so everyone should be thinking about how they learn more in the aspects of what it means to be a good insurance broker. But what it means to be a good insurance person is far beyond the technical aspects of insurance. How to read people, soft skills, how to understand stuff. So should we be educating ourselves about technology? I think any progressive brokerage is going to provide the team some level of insight and transparency about technology and where they want to go with it and ideas. They're going to share some things. It's not the easiest thing to do. I struggle with it myself, but you should always be trying to educate people about what's out there that we could look at. Because again, you go back to your frontline staff, they're the ones who are right there dealing with the granular reality of the transactions of insurance. And they should have some input into whether this stuff's valuable in terms of technology. We've got 2 rollouts that are happening kind of right now, one around payment efficiencies, another one around some sort of AI stuff. And we're testing it on a select group in the brokers because we want to see if it really does have a benefit. So we didn't commit long-term to it, but we committed enough that we're going to get an understanding of how it fits. And that's sort of the thing about education and technology is, should we be aware of what's going on? Yes. Should it be mandatory in a sense? No, but it's common sense and good business management that you should be keeping up to speed on some things. And I think our associations do a decent job of it, but it's hard. Like, everything's turned upside down right now from COVID. Like, who knows what our next conference is going to look like? I mean, if and when it happens, I can only imagine the hospitality rooms, but it's
I know they're looking forward to it.
Yeah, they're looking forward to it, or I'm scared. I'm very scared. Poor hotels. But, those are things that I think memberships have to put pressure to their associations to say, throw some of this in, throw some of that in. And even if it means you're not getting your credit hour. And part of that is associations have so much to give, but you know what we do as members? Well, I only want to come out and do it if it's got a credit hour. Why would I spend money on this if it's not a credit hour? Because we're beholden to the credit hour. That's the wrong way of looking at it. We should be beholden to what makes us better. If we get a credit hour after it, that's great. But there's 1,000 ways to get credit hours.
Like, like I find that educating yourself on different aspects of the industry, not just what's required and mandatory per year, is a very important part of being in this industry and progressing yourself as a broker and as being able to help the clients out there.
Yeah.
There's definitely like no way to progress yourself if
Yeah.
you don't just like, whether it's reading the like Canadian Underwriter or doing other
Yeah.
things like, yeah.
Yeah. You should everyone should be taking time to learn a little something new every day. Or another way some people say is, what are you going to do today that's new to you? And I think for insurance people, read an article, learn something about it, look up a weird wording or something from a company, any kind of way. And if it's a technology based thing, Google InsurTech and see what comes up. Listen to a podcast. That's a great way of getting information, getting ideas. Listen to a podcast.
It's a good plug for you too.
Yeah, there you go. Theinsurancepodcast.com. Listen to that. You get all sorts of ideas. You can tell me that I don't know any, and then you can send me an email and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, getting involved in different organizations in our
Oh
industry is
yeah.
a great way to do it too. Like you were in IBAM, from
Yeah.
IBAC to the General Insurance Council of
Yeah.
Manitoba. What benefits have you seen come from that?
So you're bang on. Give back, volunteer. I remember years ago, I was probably late 20s, just before we moved to Manitoba. I remember, and I was actually, this is in the fallout of the .com situation. I wasn't working. I was picking up contract work wherever I could. It was really difficult. And a friend said to me, she goes, why aren't you volunteering? And I was like, I don't know. She goes, that's how you're going to meet people. Get out and volunteer where you have interest, whether it's politics, whether it's this. Go help out. If people like you, they're going to advocate for you, right? So what do we tell ourselves when it comes to marketing with insurance? Your best customer is one that's been referred to you. When you turn your own customer into your marketing platform because they rave about you. Well, get people to do that about you as a person by volunteering and getting out there. And I eventually, my wife and I are really big believers in giving back in certain ways. So I wanted to give back with IBAM. And that took me on a fun journey. And then I said, well, part of being an IBAM is you got to have exposure to IBAC if you want it. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to get involved in these other committees. The Insurance Council, an opportunity came up. I said, yeah, I've always wondered how that works. Let's go and figure this out and see what we can do for the industry. And, the Insurance Council is not always looked on favorably. There's definitely people within our membership and as brokers who have some very strong views about its role. And I'd like to tell them that they couldn't be more wrong, but I'll leave it at that. But the issue here is if you don't get out, you're only living in your own bubble. And then you're in a feedback loop. And as Jeff, you ever want to talk about feedback loops and stuff with technology and development, you got to listen to Jeff McCann from Apollo Talk. He's got all sorts of insight on that. Jeff's so brilliant that way. And once you get in your own feedback loop, you're just in a downward spiral eventually. That's where you're going, because you're never going to get out of it until you get out of the loop. You keep going round and around and around and down. There's no up in that. It's only down. And that's what has to happen. You've got to challenge yourself, and volunteering is the way to go. I learned so much about understanding and reading legal stuff because of the Insurance Council and being beholden to the act, finding boundaries, having to have very difficult conversations with people. With IBAC, the one thing, and IBAM was with the travel, and it's hard right now because no one's traveling. That's where relationships were cemented. Being able to have colleagues from Newfoundland to Victoria to just shoot a breeze with once in a while, call up and say, hey, are you guys experiencing this situation? How are you dealing with it? Is just the most amazing thing. And you realize Canada is so vast and different because we're all in the same industry. We're all in a regulated industry and we're across the country, and it's so different. And chatting with your friends in New Brunswick and cracking jokes and learning about what they're dealing with in a private auto province compared to a public auto province, but what they do to help market, you learn things, and that's the best part. And so the reward of volunteering is that you make these relationships. We got a theme here. It's the relationship episode, and they become the foundation for you as you keep taking another step and propelling yourself forward, because you've made friends and you've got colleagues. Like, I hadn't been to the IBAO conference in Last time I went was 2013, and I was there in last year. And I was running into people I hadn't seen in 6 years, and it was so great. It was so fantastic. And that to me says I obviously did something right, not because I have these friends, but because I stepped out of my own shell and I made an effort to do something outside the box for myself and for my brokerage and for my career. And that happened to be by giving back to the industry. And there's 1,000 ways to do it, but I encourage, anyone who can to find a way to get involved. And even if you want to take some vacation days, you got a family member in Toronto and you want to go to IBAO, see if your broker, your owner will pay for it if you're going to go there, and you'll visit your grandmother or whatever. And then you're going to stop in and do one of the days there. Totally worth it for the people you meet. It's fantastic.
Definitely relationships are the glue that holds this industry together.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's why I got into the Young Brokers Network. You can either keep your head down and pretend like you're the only one in this industry and there's no other companies. But to be honest with you, it's important to chat with these brokers from other brokerages, because everybody's willing to talk, and we're all willing to talk to each other about what's going on.
Right? We should all, even locally in your own provincial association, we come together at conferences and events. We should all be wanting to stab each other in the back, steal clients from each other. And yeah, that kind of happens on the stealing clients and people move, but that's just the forces of the market. But we're all actually pretty cool people who are all working to a unified goal of providing care and choice for people so they have access to something at a time when their life has been turned to crap. That's a pretty powerful binding thing. And as my wife has said to me a few times, she goes, you guys are so different, because in other professions, no one would ever come together like this. You have trade associations, but you guys care about each other as much as you care about your clients. And that's what makes insurance people a little different.
We're like less hated lawyers, because after being in the courtroom, they just go out for a beer. After being at a brokerage, we all just get together and have fun.
Exactly. Yeah. We do. Work hard, play hard.
For sure. Well, Pete, I just wanted to get back to you for a second. What's the most proudest moment of your career?
Holy smokes. Okay, I'm going to get a little sappy here. Oh man, I might even cry. This is really weird. Okay. When I left Vancouver, 3 months before that, or not even 3 months, maybe even less than that, my stepfather, who was sort of like my real father, came into my life a little later, but a very important person for me, had just been diagnosed with stage 4 brain tumor. And we made the decision to leave. I was still in and out of work, contracting. We had a young child, and we just said, we got to take a shot at something different. We got to break the cycle we're in. And so I had to leave my mom and my stepfather at a very difficult time. And so that would have been 2002. And 9 years later, to be at the Fairmont on stage and have my mom come, my stepfather passed away, but to have my mom come there and see where I was standing and to say to her, I know when I left, it was really hard, but I hope it was worth it to see me now. And that meant a lot for her to see me, because it was a really awful time in her life and my life, and to leave, not the most convenient time, and to come back around and let her see that it was all worthwhile. And that was because of the insurance industry. I mean, it has something to do with me, but this industry that's what you can do in it. And that sort of, I mean, it's a weird thing to say, oh, the one thing I did was for myself and to stand there, but it was really to show that my mom, that the hardest decision I ever had to make in my life, to leave her and move across the country at a very vulnerable point in her life, was, I hope it worked out for her. And she told me it did.
That's pretty powerful. That's pretty, that's
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to get that deep, but you think about those things, you're like, yeah, that's probably it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things that I'm very proud of in terms of contributing to the industry and stuff. That's the one that I think, like, Yeah. And it happened because of the people here in Manitoba and, just the opportunities and being able to rise up in this industry because it is such a great industry.
Yeah, our proudest moments are always our most emotional experiences. So
Yeah, absolutely. They more often than are.
mm. Right now we're in a kind of a different market.
Yeah.
A lot of younger brokers have not seen it yet. Where do you see the opportunities right now for younger brokers?
So what's the Buffett quote? When people get greedy, be fearful. When people are fearful, be greedy. I think that something like that. It's a Warren Buffett quote. So when everyone was greedy 3, 4 years ago, the last 10 years, soft market rates, we could just punish underwriters and everything. And, they would bend over backwards for us for rate and stuff just to get the business. We got greedy and we should have been getting fearful because there was going to be a debt coming paid. So let's flip it around. Now that everyone is fearful about risk, there's a lot of opportunity out there. What you need to do is recognize that most of the people you're talking to as underwriters, whether it's an online submission, whether it's a phone call and then following it up with your company submission form, whether you're using a third-party software to do submissions like PolicyWorks, part of Apply, blah, blah, blah. What you need to be doing right now is making sure that you're learning about the risk because the person receiving the risk probably doesn't know anything about it. The shift in demographics right now on the underwriting side is you have underwriters who have been there 3, 4 years. They're on their way to a CIP or whatever it is. Maybe they've got it. They don't know a hoot about your industry. They don't know anything about it. You've got to become the industry expert and alleviate the fears. That's where the opportunity is. Dot your T's, cross your I's, be super thorough, and then double check it again. That's what you need to learn. We all got so sloppy because it was so easy for so long. You could email submissions in 5 sentences and 3 numbers on an email, on the base of your email, and get a quote back. That was bad behavior. Build up your good behaviors, work your network and get to meet underwriters and build a friendship or at least a level of rapport with them, and then become an expert, become their expert, become their trusted advisor so that they know when they get something from you, it's better than getting it from anyone else. And then stay the hell away from my risks.
That's very true. And like while you were saying that, I just thought of another question right now, with regards to going back to technology again. There is technology out there right now which monitors usage in vehicles in other provinces that are private carriers. Do you think that they'll ever implement any kind of technologies? A lot of people are very careful about what kind of data they're given to other people, but do you think there's ever going to be a technology that monitors sprinkler systems, alarm systems that go directly
to companies? It's already out there. It's already there. It's done. It's all coming.
Do you think it's going to be popular here?
I'm going to be putting one into place in some risks anyways. Yeah, it'll become mandatory. There will be certain classes of business that will require some level of predictive risk analysis that will help reduce loss. Absolutely. It's going to happen everywhere. Water meters, smart electrical panels will then, so what's happening right now with smart electrical meters is any anomalies in the electrical meter, where are they going? They're going to the power company. Well, why does the power company get to know something about you and you not know it? Yeah. Like, we need to know those things too. And who's the power company? So it's just like, okay, so let's back up the bus. The biggest mistake brokers made in the last 20 years is when the horsepower on quoting software started ramping up and there was more and more reliance on it, particularly after the 2003 or 2004 Kelowna fires, when all of a sudden the replacement cost became everything to insurance companies. We let the data fly out. We became data entry mules. for insurance companies who bought the data in partnership with the software companies to use against us for what we're trying to sell and bring them customers. And we had no say in it. So, you got to go back and you got to think about, how do I say this? I don't know. I'm almost losing my thought here. What was the question again? What were you asking me? It was
if the technology.
Oh yeah, technology is smart. So it's basically the smart home technology. And so now we've got a point here that we should be, as industry associations, whatever, reaching out and saying, your customer doesn't want to have that data go to the insurance company. They want it to come to their insurance broker so that the broker can manage it for the insurer and for you, be your advocate with it. So whether it's electrical anomalies on an electrical system, sprinkler stuff, monitoring that, water pressure, whatever it is, alarm systems. Alarm systems are a dying breed anyways. There's technology out there right now with Nest, Kangaroo, that's going to change the alarm system model anyways. I mean, if you've got Wi-Fi in your house and your Wi-Fi never drops, why would you use a company like API or AAA Alarms? Go get something else. They'll still monitor it for you, and you'll have video and everything, and you pay a fraction of the cost. Like, it's all going to get upended. So, it's already there. It's just a matter of when it hits scale. And at some point, you got to remember, Cody, you're younger than me. Your generation, you guys already sacrificed your privacy away. Like my kids, I've got a 21-year-old, 16-year-old. They have no idea what data privacy is. They don't know what it's like. And for the next generation, it's already been taken away from you. So no one's going to ever bat an eye at it as more and more come on. More and more devices and things come on, and it's all going to be tracking. You talked about UBI and everything. Here's the thing about UBI that doesn't get talked a lot about is UBI tells you where things are happening. And what that means is it's not how you drive, but if there's 1,000 vehicles in your neck of the woods that all have UBI, and it's maybe the same UBI provider, and they have the same things happening certain places, they're going to rate you based on where you'll live, not because of your postal code, but because you've got crappy roundabouts in your neighborhood like River Heights does, and you're always braking hard because no one knows how to drive through them. Like, it's going to rate faults with infrastructure that affect drivers because they're going to know where it happens.
For sure. I just find it funny that a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, no, I wouldn't give my information to a company I don't know about. And I'm like, but you could be breathing and then wheezing, and then all of a sudden there's inhaler ads on your phone that they know about.
Yeah, exactly. But if you have a smartphone, you surrendered it.
Yeah.
You've already given up your privacy. You let it fly out the window. It's gone. So why are you worrying about the other stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Pete, you've done so much already. What are your goals for the future?
My goals for the future are, I've got a couple interesting things I'm hoping are going to be coming online for next year for the podcast, a couple potentially neat partnerships that I think could be kind of fun. The other goal is to navigate our sales team and organization through this hard market and sort of take advantage of, that's a short-term one, take advantage of some realizations of opportunity that we see that are out there and grow our business. That's the short term. And that's it. 5 years from now, I can't say. Things are moving too fast. I'm having too much fun. So I won't predict 5 years down the road. Even though, like I'm telling everyone 20 minutes earlier, oh yeah, make sure your tech vendor knows what they're doing in 5 years. Tessier, he doesn't know what he's doing.
What kind of fun stuff do you got coming up on the podcast? Can we break it here, or are you going to?
No, can't break it here. There's actually 2 meetings on Wednesday that'll be very interesting. We'll see where it goes. Just some neat, probably some content partnerships that should evolve. And you know what? And honestly, I am really hoping this COVID nonsense gets taken care of. I'm looking forward to seeing some insurance friends again. And I sure hope we have an IBAM convention in April. I can't wait for that. I'll probably just get a hotel room at the Fairmont, unlike previous years where I just go home. And because I don't think I'll want to go home because I'll be having too much fun. And I hope that, and I look forward to some other conventions too, and just getting back out and seeing people again. That's what I really want in the future. And if it means I've got to lock myself in the house for another 2 months to make that happen, I'm prepared to make that sacrifice.
I don't want to say if there's a convention. I prefer to say when there's a convention next year. Then
well said, Cody. Well said.
I think a lot of us will get there, and then the first day, and then they'll wake up 10 days later and realize it's done.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to, the best thing would be is if you're an early to bed kind of person, get up around 4:30 in the morning and go for a walk through the hotel and see what kind of shrapnel there is. It'd be pretty interesting.
Oh, for sure. Well, I got one more question for you, Pete. We like to end the show with this. What is one piece of advice you would give to young brokers to help them thrive in their career?
Relationships. Build your relationships. No. Okay, that's the easy one. Honestly, to thrive in your career is to be well-rounded. There are lots of brokers who are experts in things, and you will find a niche that you probably enjoy more than others, and you'll take an interest to, and you may follow that passion to maybe be an expert in a certain class of risk or whatever. But the best advice I could give people is keep your blinders way off. Don't get tunnel vision on one goal. Be open to anything. And sometimes the best move you can ever make is a lateral move, because you may not be able to see it, but the path to the left of you or the right of you may be a different path, but it's a cleaner path and it has a different ending. And not all roads lead to Rome. A lot of metaphors and stuff in there, but the idea being is just don't have tunnel vision. Round yourself out well, so you can talk about enough insurance and interests that make you sound competent as a broker, and you can talk and you can learn about what's going on in the industry, so you can sound competent as an insurance professional. There's the technical side, and then there's the professional side. And you've got to have your blinders way off to be a professional. You got to think about all sorts of things, and volunteer in your industry, whatever that looks like.